It's finally here, the conclusion to the Erebonia and Crossbell arcs. The Legend of Heroes Trails into Reverie is finally upon us, but does it live up to the hype? My name's Kevin from Save the Game Media. I have played the entirety of Trails into Reverie, and I have some thoughts. So, if you're new to this channel and into day one reviews or gaming podcasts, please consider subscribing. Before we get started, I want to give a quick shout out to Falcom and NIS America for providing the code for this review. Now, let's talk about Trails into Reverie. A few months ago, when I reviewed Trails to Azure, I labeled it a masterpiece, and I stand by that. At the time, I also said I wouldn't be able to play Cold Steel before Reverie. Well, I lied. I played all four of the Cold Steel games in between my Azure review and now, so my excitement for Reverie was at an all time high. For those unfamiliar, Trails into Reverie acts as the epilogue to the Crossbell duology and the Cold Steel series. However, this game was not at all what I expected. I knew going into the game that there were three routes you would play. You would play Lloyd's route, Rain's route, and then the mysterious Seas route. What I did not expect was how linear this game is compared to the previous Trails games. If you love the exploration and side quests of the previous games, you unfortunately won't find that here. The format to this game is very linear, and while I think it makes the game more approachable as it's straightforward, it does lack some of the charm I found with the previous titles, especially coming from the Cold Steel games, where I miss the social bonding events because they're not present in Reverie. Everyone will start the game with our favorite Crossbellian heroes, the SSS, in Lloyd's route. You're very quickly introduced to the mechanic to switch routes. On PS5, which is what I played on, this is done by hitting right on the D pad. From here, you're going to be able to pick from the other two routes. Now, you can't just completely finish one route and then go to another. The story is happening concurrently, and you are forced to switch or play certain routes before progressing with another. There will also be occasional times where routes intersect, and it will automatically switch you, or you'll be able to go back and forth to solve a puzzle. Apart from the routes, you'll be introduced to the Reverie Corridor. If you played Cold Steel, this is a name you're going to recognize, especially if you completed the end game stuff, but this is a much different dungeon than the one we knew in the old schoolhouse. While the idea is similar, you progress through floors and have boss battles at the end of each floor. What makes this experience much different, and in my opinion, much more awesome, is that in the Reverie Corridor, you're going to have access to every single character across all three routes, and even some not present in the story. Let me tell you, there are so many characters in this game. I believe there's around 60 characters in total, and keeping all of them on the same level, fully geared up, is a nigh impossible task. I mainly stuck with my favorite characters in the series, but I love that it's possible for me to get a party of Laura, Rixia, Wazi, and Estelle together and then just have fun. The Reverie Garden will be home to all of the side content that this game offers, and there's a hefty amount of content here for you to explore. You'll be provided missions to complete as you progress through a Reverie Corridor, and completing these missions will give you items, quartz, and phantasmal shards, which can be exchanged for more power ups, more tag along characters to increase your AG gauge, to increase your battle gauge. Tons of stuff here for you to play around with. Within the Reverie Corridor, there are a plethora of formidable foes that when you defeat, they're going to give you different colored orbs. You take these orbs to the unlocking station, and depending on the color, it gives you different things. So if you get a gold orb, you can get additional characters to use in the Reverie Corridor. I believe my first one, I got Angelica from the Cold Steel series, but you can also trade in these orbs for things like items or daydreams. Daydreams are essentially the side quests of Trails into Reverie. These are side stories that will take place before the main story of Reverie and can involve any characters we've met in the Trails universe so far. While the few I did were mainly dialogue based with a few battles, if you love the universe and characters, I think these are great additions. If you need more to do somehow, the Reverie Corridor also offers combat trials for specific characters to complete and a whole host of mini games that you can play. This isn't really my thing. A lot of the mini games look a little silly. There is obviously the card battling games we've come to know from the Cold Steel series, but these take it to a whole new level. You won't be able to fully explore the Reverie Corridor until after completing the main story, as the Reverie Corridor will provide you the true final boss and the most difficult challenge in the game. In terms of the gameplay, this is very much a Trails game that will feel familiar to fans of the series. The combat is essentially the same from the Cold Steel series, turn based with the ability to use normal attacks, crafts, or arts. If you deal criticals, you'll follow up with your linked party members or burst attack with the entire team. What is added to Reverie is a system called United Fronts. This allows you to attack with not just the force of your current four party members, but all the additional support members in your party as well. Now, let's talk a bit about the story as I've covered the gameplay. As I mentioned, you start as the SSS, and it's finally time to celebrate Crossbell's independence. Or is it? Crossbell is quickly reoccupied by what looks like a familiar foe, but I would say that a theme of this game is things are not quite always what they seem. Crossbell is very much at the heart of the story, with Rain and Class 7 doing what they can to help their friends, and the mysterious Sea operating in the shadows with the party of new characters like Swin, Nadia, and Lapis. All of which I think are great additions to the Trails franchise, and they have some very interesting backstories, especially Lapis, who will be expanded upon the most. While there are aspects of Reverie's story I really enjoy, I can't help but feel more than any other Trails game that I played that this game relies a bit too heavily on those Deus Ex elements, where that's to say, you want to fit so many characters into this game that they just kind of show up to save you or for no other reason besides, well, they were in the previous game, so we got to get them in here somewhere. I got over it pretty quickly. It's a pretty overused trope. I'm not over the moon about it, but it is what it is. Another thing I'm not entirely impressed with is the actual villains in Reverie. I would say that there are three main villains in this game, one of them being the most prominently featured, and they are also the least interesting. The other two are callbacks to previous games, so I enjoyed them a bit more as they wrap things up nicely in a little bow. As always, it's difficult to discuss Trails without spoilers, and I really don't want to spoil this game because I think there are some really good story beats. But know that if I had to rank this game among the other six games I've played, that's the Cold Series and the Crossbell games, because I haven't played Sky yet, I would rank this sixth only above Trails to zero. One annoyance I did have was that the cover art for Trails into Reverie is the Ouroboros Grand Master, and let me tell you, the Grand Master is not in this game apart from one optional daydream sequence. The cover art looks awesome, but Ouroboros has basically nothing to do with this game. And it's a shame because when I saw the cover, I thought it was going to be really heavily Ouroboros focused. And that was super interesting to me because I really love the society. So this was a bit of a letdown. One thing I wanted to note was that despite Falcom saying that save data from the PlayStation 4 Trails games wouldn't carry into Reverie on the PlayStation 5, mine did. Now, I wonder if this is because I played the PS4 games on my PS5, but this was a nice surprise. Now, you can just choose your outcomes for the Cold Steel games, like who you romanced at the start of this game, if you wanted to even switch it up because you have that save data. But to see that all of my things carry forward, it recognized who I romanced, who I got the max links with. That was a nice touch. In terms of technical issues, there were some surprising frame rate drops during some certain cutscenes, but other than that, the game runs flawlessly and looks just as good, if not better, than the games we've come to expect from Falcom. Obviously, they don't have a state of the art engine. It's a Trails game. It's going to look how it looks, but I did think this one looked a little more sharp than the Cold Steel series. Now, the verdict: should you buy Trails into Reverie? Despite me not loving the game, and I think that could be because I had different expectations for what it was going to be, I would recommend this game to any Trails fan that has played the previous six games, as it's a satisfying conclusion to those arcs. This is not a game to start the series with at all. I will say, make sure your expectations are in check. If you loved Cold Steel for the social elements, you're not going to find those here, so know what you're getting into. Trails and Reverie is a good game and worth your time and money, just not a great game. That's all I got. Let me know if you're picking up Trails in a Reverie or if you've already played it with the Japanese version. Let me know your thoughts down below. Follow us at Save Game Media over on Twitter to stay up to date with all of our latest videos. And until next time, I've been Kevin. See ya.